Hello again, Ryan Fring here with the BitLife Show, and I wanted to film something with maybe a little bit nicer camera so we're not all pixelated today, but we're super busy at the office. Oops. And even though we shot on the green screen and had it all set up and ready to go, I just had no time to jump in there and do something for Geek Week. So we're going to do something else. I thought that it'd be fun to take a look at some of the special effects that we did and graphics that we did for the 48-hour film contest that the group we were part of won a lot of stuff. It's pretty awesome. And maybe you could learn a little something, but also hopefully it's just interesting to see a little peek behind the curtain, if you know what I'm saying. So we're going to take a look at three things. We're going to take a look at look at my notes. We're going to take a look at the 3D credits, how we did that, the billboard, and the ID card, because that is actually all special effects.
Okay, first we're going to take a look at the 3D credit effect that we did. And we did this because we wanted to just do something a little different for the actors. What you do is you first start with your video. And in this case, we had GoPro footage shot at 60 frames a second, I believe, slowed down to 24, so we get that slow motion effect. But what you'll do with it is you'll go in and add a After Effects camera tracker, a 3D camera tracker to it. You can see right here, I've already done that. It puts all these dots everywhere to let you know that it tracked all these points. And for our purposes, we'll pick some dots on the wall and create a camera from that. We do that over here, but we've already done that. So then once you have a camera, you can see that After Effects will animate it in your scene to match the footage that you tracked it from. Once we have our 3D camera move, then we can add our 3D object into the scene. In this case, I started just with some text, and this is just regular After Effects text. And that's great because what it gets you is the ability to connect it to your Element 3D layer, and then your Element 3D layer can work off of the text and just extrude and give you your 3D text right natively in After Effects. And then you place your Element 3D item in the space, in the 3D space, and add lights. In this case, I put lights on there very similar to the scene that we had, just to help it blend a little bit better. And if you need a little bit more screen time, like myself, because I was not in the film, you can just go right in and edit the text, and it automatically updates our 3D object. And there you go. Ryan Fring, Sinclair Vandermint, cool. And you'll notice it's a little bit cartoony, but that's just because we didn't have enough time to have really long renders. We had minutes instead of hours, so all the render settings were turned way down. But there you have it, 3D text. So now we're going to take a look at the Billboard graphic, one of my favorite ones, just because it was so subtle, but so awesome. The drawings were done by Candace. And this is Chad, the Wild Man, and Candace, the Goose, our radio DJs. And this, like all the other effects, was very similar. We have a comp that we created our graphic in, and that we put in 3D space into our tracked motion camera. So like with the other ones, you got to do the same thing. You start with a regular shot. In this case, we had an actual road sign. Looks like maybe some gas. Quick Trip or BP. I recommend BP. And like before, you put a camera tracker in there, and you can just right from the dialog create that 3D camera, and that will create this camera that moves through your 3D space so that you can put objects into After Effects, and they'll move just like the rest of your scene. So once you have that, then you want to create your graphic. And here is actually the finished graphic with all the natural kind of layers put on top of it. Here's the original graphic, the compilation I did with Candace's drawing as well as the radio graphic, and we just put that in a composition and set that up how we wanted with all the elements, made sure there was enough room. And then here we have the extra stuff that I did on top of it, where I added a plasticky kind of texture, kind of recolorized it to make it look like it fit in the scene a little better, added some depth to it, and then also here I added some curves to it to just make it fit. So then once I had it in this 3D space, I had to go ahead and paint out the sky, or paint a sky where the old sign was. And that's how the magic was done. And last but certainly not least, we have this wonderful fake ID that is fake in all sense of the word. It doesn't actually exist. It's completely digital. And we had to do this because without it, somebody would just be saying, "Oh, you're mistaken. You have a identity, and I'm going to mistake it." Or, I'm not a writer, but somebody would have to point out that the mistaken identity has happened. Here we can show it. So you'll notice a few of these Easter eggs that I added on there, little firmament films on the side, as well as the expiration date of 2102. So this is like all the others. You are going to want to start with your actual scene. And what I did in this case is I took TC's ID, which they filmed, and added a tracker to it. So I just tracked 2 points on it. Instead of a camera tracker, because there's not a camera move, there's just an item moving in the scene, so that kind of tracker works much better. Something else you'll see is that the light looks really weird on the ID. It's actually kind of orange, whereas the hand is very blue. And that was just because of the way the light was set up. So when I finished the comp, I actually made it a little bit more blue because I felt it just fit into the scene a little bit better. So you start with your graphic. This is what I started with, which is the standard Wisconsin driver's license that I got from the Wisconsin website. And it's got all default information, so none of it's volatile. Don't worry, you can't steal somebody's identity with it. Or can you? So what I had to do is I had to cut that all apart and replicate some of the graphics, some of the backgrounds and things like that, so that we could put our own information in there. And I just slowly did that piece by piece by piece. We used the same photo everywhere, signature. And then I added a plastic layer over, and that's just to help with the glare in the actual scene, as well as some of the color. And then I also put the Wisconsin crests on there, the holograms, which is pretty cool. And I used a lighten or some kind of great blend mode. And then finally I added a blue hue to it just to make it fit into the scene a little bit better. So all you had to do was put it in there and parent it to our tracker, and then add some masks to mask out the fingers. And there we have it. That's the whole thing in 2 minutes and 45 seconds. It was actually really fun to do, and it turned out really, really well. The tracking is just spot on, and the way the graphic works just ended up being a pretty great piece. So there you have it. That's how we did some of the magic in our 48-hour film. Check back tomorrow when Erin talks about City of Bones and some other children's books or something that she's really enthused about. And I'll talk about anime.